How's it going, guys? Today I'm going to be featuring the Ohio. This one using a different build than we kind of have been using. We've decided to forego a secondary inspiration and just go full on range with Megatron, trying to get us as much range as we possibly can. Obviously, Enrique Fernandez does give some range, but in this meta, at this point in the Legends, there is kind of a lot of long range HE spam, long range sniping, especially from Pruessens who just never seem to want to push in. So not having the range to kind of fight them at those longer distances and simply being outranged by almost everything is kind of junk, if we're being honest. So having a little more range does kind of help, and it allows us to do other things than push in. We are still going to have at least one secondary inspiration while using Optimus Prime, just because, I mean, you do still want to have that ability to push in. It's just you kind of need to figure out when you can push in. Hindenburg gets spotted again. Unfortunately, we took a shot and our front guns hit the island. It looked pretty good, and I figure we might have chunked him for like half his HP, but unfortunately, that isn't the case. Friendly Des Moines pushing in. We see an enemy cruiser broadside at the island, so we slow down, and it turns out that it's a Brisbane. Unfortunately, those shells that hit the island didn't get us our first stack of plotting rum, but I mean, flat broadside Brisbane, you would assume that it's gonna get dev struck. But unfortunately, not having that stack of plotting rum maybe seems like it kind of hurt a little bit. But you're gonna notice something pretty funny for this match. For whatever reason, even though you would assume you're supposed to punish broadsides, you just never do. And then when you're, or I guess the enemy does something relatively intelligent like angle, all of a sudden, for whatever reason, something opposite happens. For example, this Des Moines, we're trying to get a shot on him. He's flat broadside. He is reversing towards our friendly Schlieffen that's YOLOing in. And we do have to kind of be careful with our decision here because Schlieffen charging in, I mean, he basically insta-died. And that's kind of the unfortunate scenario that Schlieffen is in right now. You just YOLO in and you insta-die. And after all of the nerfs that happened to it, it's kind of brutal. Flat broadside Des Moines, though, we get basically nothing. We did nothing to him. And I mean, you would assume that the Des Moines that was flat broadside would get absolutely nuked. And, well, we didn't get a single Citadel. And we took him for like 2 bars of his HP. But also now, we pop our secondary button. We're getting some decent damage in. And that's kind of why we have some secondary inspirations. Des Moines is perfectly flat bow in. And we get a double Citadel and Dev Strike him. That's not how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be the Des Moines that's flat broadside gets dev struck, not the one that's actually bow in trying to actually minimize his profile. But that's just the way the cookie crumbles with this RNG most of the time. Enemy Brisbane got away with sailing flat broadside once. He's also sailing flat broadside again, and he's also turning even more broadside. Luckily though, Brisbane, he does get touched this time, although it's not quite enough to basically dev strike him, which is kind of unfortunate. I think he did have some sort of damage reduction, as our Citadel only did 15 to 50, which normal Citadel from Ohio would do 15 750, at least without running with scissors. Another broadside cruiser, enemy Hindenburg, flat broadside, turning, lifting, Citadel, everything, and we're not able to punish him. Again, how the cookie crumbles with cruisers getting away with some funny things. Which is also why we were kind of messing around with dispersion builds with Riker for a little bit. Because it kind of seemed like we needed some of that dispersion in the meta, which we're trying to combat, which is the whole range thing. But it also felt like having Marksman and Flammable Cannoneer, I don't know, just didn't feel as good as I kind of wish it did. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's not enough or a big enough sample size to actually make that determination. But I don't know. We ended up going back to Optimus Prime, and I mean, it clearly seems like it's working since we were able to dev strike a Des Moines through the bow. But at this point, on its left is a full HP Montana, and the Pruessen that was all the way at the back of the map that lost a lot of its HP. I'm assuming it was to either another battleship or torpedoes from the DD that just basically sailed it straight through the middle. The Montana finally pushing back in. I kind of want to get rid of the Pruessen as quickly as we can because Pruessen is a little more scary than a Montana. Pruessen sailing flat broadside. He's at about half HP, maybe a third HP rather. But yeah, Pruessen having such accurate guns, you kind of don't want to let him linger around. Otherwise, he's going to do like 15, 20k to your superstructure, and obviously that's not fun when you're trying to go in and brawl against another battleship, which we do want to try and brawl this Montana because that's kind of where our fun is. Our secondary starts shooting, so we pop our second button. We also have enough range that it can also reach the Schlieffen, so we got both sides going. Pruessen taking a long time to angle away. We're able to touch him pretty good here. And at this point, Pruessen is probably going to go down. Our secondaries are actually landing in a superstructure. And something I recently learned is that Ohio has the same secondary accuracy as Schlieffen. And obviously it didn't feel nearly as accurate or as good as a Massachusetts. And that's basically why. It's Schlieffen accuracy, the German battlecruiser dispersion accuracy, which is still fairly decent, especially when you run the secondary funny button. But the difference is Massachusetts, I mean, everything is basically a laser beam. You're landing at least 8 to 10 shells when your funny button's active. But yeah, unfortunately Ohio doesn't get that benefit. Montana just decided to ram, and it is unfortunate. It would have been fun to brawl, but I mean, he sat at the back the whole time and his whole team's dead, so that's the best thing that he could do. But a decent match in Ohio. We were able to push in, somehow dev struck a Des Moines through the bow, and I mean, we basically did 3,500 XP. So pretty good Ohio match, if I do say so myself, and kind of the whole new meta that we're trying to figure out how to work around with Ohio. We did like our secondary builds because it was the most fun. But as time goes on, more and more long-range sniping ships gonna continue to be the most accurate battleship in the game releases going down the line. I mean, we just got Wisconsin, and that thing has battlecruiser dispersion and reload booster. So kind of the direction we're moving in, sniping. I mean, we're trying to do our best to stick around with our secondary build, but also staying relevant in the sniping meta. So we have Optimus Prime, standard commander skills. Inspirations is Hipper and Megatron. Yeah, kind of interesting. I mean, you could still technically get away with Enrique Fernandez. And I mean, using this epic booster, I mean, it pushes us from 18 to 18.5, which, I mean, it's still pretty decent. I think with just Flammable Cannoneer sitting at like 18.4 or 18.2 or something like that. So it's kind of on par with just that. But that's pretty much it for this one. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like and subscribe for more, and share it with your friends, or leave a comment down below for other ships you want to see in the future. But anyway, guys, till next time, aloha.